Well, hello everyone, Dan Hurd with Dan Hurd Prospecting here. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new, welcome. I hope to earn your subscription today. You ever see those little tiny glass vials full of gold flake you get at tourist traps? Well, today we're gonna find out how much gold is in the gold leaf they put in those vials. So wish us luck, and I hope you enjoy. So today, my dad, Doug, is going to be helping us out.
Hello there!
And I can answer the question right now if you want. How much gold is in those gold vials? Pretty much nothing. That gold foil in those vials is so unbelievably thin, it accounts for almost nothing. We're going to take it one step farther. We have 20 grams of the gold foil they use to make up those vials. And we're going to test that gold foil and see what is actually in it for gold content.
Oh, the heavy gold!
Oh. Catch that gold. So, one of my viewers saw on eBay someone selling 20 grams of gold foil used for making up those, tourist trap souvenir gold vials. And he sent it to me saying, Dan, please test this. Tell me how much gold is actually in there. Because it says it's 20 grams, but he only paid a couple dollars for it. And 20 grams of gold should be worth hundreds of dollars. So he's thinking that there's actually not any real gold in there. But we have the ability to find out if he got a really good deal off eBay or if, sure enough, there's only a couple dollars worth of gold in that bag. Now, how we plan to do this today is we're going to take this 20 grams and break it in half, two 10-gram loads. We're going to take one of the loads and just melt it down with borax and see what comes out of it. We're then going to take the other half and we're going to smelt it. We're going to put the proper chemicals in it to smelt it down to remove any of the other metals that might be in that gold leaf, and then see what happens with that. 10 grams melted should come out to 10 grams. 10 grams smelted, well, that's another story. So here is the gold foil. This gold leaf is absolutely nothing in thickness. Pretty stuff, but does not account for anything. Oh, there's some on the floor. Oh well, it's not like we're losing much here. So we're gonna take some of this, about half of it. We're going to shove it into this crucible. Oh sure, put that in there too. As you can see, we're losing lots, and I am not too worried because, as I said a second ago, this does not account for pretty much anything for gold. All we're going to do in this crucible is we're going to add borax. We're going to put it into our cupelling furnace, heat it up red hot, and melt it down, then pour it into a mold and see what comes out. We're going to take a very scientific amount of half. As you can tell, I'm measuring very carefully here. Probably going to be actually whatever we can fit into this crucible and squish down. Remember, this was like $4 worth of material here. If I lose a little bit, I'm not losing lots of value.
Penny here, 3 pennies there.
Yeah. And we still have to leave room that we can put some borax in here. Oh, that's gonna be way too much. Let's do it. That's gonna be about half right there. There we go. I am sure, positive, 100%, that was exactly half of that bag. Squish it in there.
Yeah.
Push.
Run over the sides.
Push it. Ah!
Oh, you better push it.
Push.
Okay. Whoops.
Borax. There we be. Now, one of my theories about why this is 20 grams of gold leaf is possibly that there's maybe 1 gram of gold in there and 19 grams of the oils they use to separate the gold leaves apart or something like that, something on the surface that might be adding to the weight but not adding to the gold volume. Another theory is that this is not actually gold, that it's another metal that they've made into something that is drawn out into a leaf type material. But gold is actually one of the best metals for drawing out into a leaf. So I'm not sure if there's another metal that can actually get that thin and small, if they've used aluminum or, lead in with it or something. We don't really know. But one of my theories is that there's enough other stuff on the surface of that gold leaf to account for the extra weight that we obviously didn't pay for in gold. There's one theory. I don't know. I don't know enough about the gold leaf to know if there is another metal that can look the same that is no gold at all. We might not come out with any. What do you think?
I'm going with without any.
I'm going with that too. You got the compelling furnace ready to go?
Yeah.
And the lid. Sure, put it all on.
Well, that one's on to go nicely. Let's warm up the big boy here.
Fire up the next one.
Yeah.
And we're gonna smelt the rest with the proper smelting chemicals. Remember, a melt is just changing the state from a solid to a liquid. A smelt is a chemical reaction. We're going to actually use chemicals to remove any impurities out of that. Now there's multiple different ways to light the kiln, depending on how many eyebrows you want left afterwards.
Or hairs on your hand.
hairs on your hand. There we go.
We're going to try the internal light.
Okay, no hand hairs left. Whoa! I smell burnt hair. I have to clean out the crucible before we do this because there's a little bit of silver left in the bottom of the crucible that we don't want messing up our results. That's almost level in there. I was here last week melting down a bunch of scrap silver. You may have seen the video, and I just had a few beads left in the bottom of the crucible that we're going to be using. So we're just going to heat up the crucible red hot, pour that out so that when we put the gold leaf in there, we're not getting a mixture of silver and gold, because that would make it look a lot bigger than it's actually going to look. And we will be using a flux. We'll be using Legends High Letharge Flux. It's going to actually combine the gold or whatever's in that leaf with lead. And in the end, we're going to get what's called a prill. That's a lead-gold mixture that we coupel afterwards, which is a process of removing the lead, leaving just the precious metals behind. If there is anything like copper or lead or tin or anything like that in with that gold, it will also oxidize those into the coupel. We'll get rid of those. It should just leave gold and silver behind.
Platinum and iridium.
Platinum, iridium. Okay, there's a whole bunch more things too, but they're precious metals. The metals that will not oxidize. Legends High Letharge Flux, and we're going to use a very scientific measurement here of that much in with this smelt. This is pre-mixed flux. It has everything we want in it, including the lead oxide, which, you know, reduces to lead, and some flour in with it to help reduce it to lead, and it's what's going to actually create lead in the smelt to combine with the gold. Then we're going to add the gold leaf in there, mix it all up, and by the time we're done mixing it all up, hopefully our silver is melted and we're ready to go. We're also heating up one of our coupels here. My coupels are stored outside, so they absorb a lot of moisture, and I had a problem last time of the coupels actually melting, or not melting, sorry, the coupels cracking. I know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to drive off any water before we use the coupel right now. Dad, this is looking really hot over here. How we doing?
Good question. We're down to a little lump. It's not quite melted.
Okay, well, let's let it go. If this is a metal that has not gold, that's not you know, a low melting temperature, if it's a high melting temperature, we might not even get to liquid in that.
That's correct.
We will in this. Neat thing about a smelt is you don't have to get hot enough to melt the metals that are in there, because the chemicals will actually dissolve the metals in the smelt situation.
You know what I'm going to do?
What are you going to do?
I'm going to break these lumps up.
So they mix up with the smelt?
I'm going to put that in here and shake it all up to get the
Good call. Good call.
surface contact.
That's why we pay him the big bucks.
You're supposed to get paid? This is looking like not enough flux.
We're not dealing with sulfides or gold ore here.
Right.
Most of the metal in there is just going to be a straight up metal of some sort.
that's right.
So we don't need a lot of flux, and if we put too much flux, we're going to end up with too big of a prill.
Right.
So we're hoping for a, you know, an adequate sized prill, but not a huge prill. Don't lose the gold, Dad.
Oh.
I'll take it out of your salary. All right, we poured the silver out. It's down in there now. It's time to load our chart. Let's actually turn the flame off here.
Yeah, get rid of the breeze.
Yeah, and carefully load the charge.
Look at it. Some of it ignite. Like steel wool. Some's good, more's better. Look how it turned to ash.
Yep. It's like it's almost paper.
Yep.
I wonder if that's what it is. I wonder if it's paper that has had, you know, electroplated gold on the surface or something like that. That would make sense.
Yep.
And if that's the case, 20 grams is going to go down to nothing. Let's turn that back on.
The mirror.
The mirror is right there. You want to see it burn away? We'll see what $4 worth of gold goes down into. If you can tell by all the laughing going on, we're not taking this seriously at all right now.
It's very serious.
Very serious.
No. Seriously silly.
Hey, look at all the gold. My workbench is going to look like it's just covered in gold by the time we're done.
I'm pretty sure we do.
That was Dad trying to lose his beard. I'm being very careful with my beard. You can lose yours.
Mine needs trimming anyway.
Well, you just about did it.
This is collapsed into the bottom and is fluxing at the bottom now.
So whatever's in there is either burnt or melted or anything is sitting on the bottom letting the flux do its thing.
Flux is boiling.
Flux is boiling? This one, I just looked inside it and we seem to have some hard lump in the bottom. I even took my carbon rod here to poke around at it and it's just a little hard lump. It doesn't seem to be melting in any way. The flux is doing its thing. It's fluxing down there. If that can't get hot enough to melt that lump that's inside there, once we get this out and have the coupelling going, we'll move that over to the hotter furnace because this thing can get a whole lot hotter than that can. And maybe it'll take that solid lump and do something with it. Or maybe not. And it's snowing out here in the wilderness. A beautiful winter's day. I think it is January 18th right now. It's just hovering just above zero, snowing a little bit. Dad's trying to make a snowball.
Unsuccessfully.
Not working. Dad says we're up to temperature. We're around 2,000 degrees. Just under 2,000. We're up to temperature. We're supposed to leave a smelt in for 20 minutes at the 2,000 degrees to get all the chemistry to do its things do its things? Do its stuff? Do it completely? Yeah, we'll leave it. We'll let it do whatever it can. It also takes a bit of time for all that litharge to, you know, reduce and get into lead and all that kind of stuff in there. So in 20 minutes, we will pour that and see what we get. Well, that's enough time. Let's get in there and see.
Can't see a thing, it's so bright.
Too bright, it's too hot.
Yeah.
We're over 2,000 degrees by a fair bit right now. Time to pour.
Whoops.
Definitely saw lead come out of there.
I know it's supposed to go back the other way, but...
Nice looking flux on top. I saw lead fall into it, so we definitely have a lead prill in the bottom. Let's hope it's not too much lead. And we had a bit of an issue with the furnace falling apart. Oops.
Once again.
Once again, yeah. This isn't the first time. You're technically supposed to tighten these clamps on here periodically. Yeah. We don't, which, you know,
periodically it falls apart.
Yeah, results in that. There we go, all fixed like there was never a problem.
Nothing in a new pair of gloves doesn't get it cured.
Yeah.
These were loose.
Dad, my personal mechanic. Is a mechanic fixing that? Sure.
Mention it. Oh, my hands nice and warm now.
Yeah. Put your feet up there. They'll warm them up.
You're fine.
I'm thinking this is not doing it up here. Ugh. So I just checked on that and it's all molten inside there, so just gonna give it a second, because when I was checking on it, it cooled off. Give it a second to heat up again, and then we'll pour it on the other side. Then we'll start the coupelling process. Well, the flux just popped in a big way. As it cooled, the stress built up in it and the glass flux on top shattered. It tends to do that. Of course, we got debris in what we're about to pour into, but we'll get that out of here.
We can tip that out now.
We can tip that out? Okay, let's tip that out first. Don't lose it. Oh, there's our lead. The lead didn't fall out.
Cool as hell, and a perfect separation.
Yep, beautiful separation of the fluxes. The lead's still in the bottom. There it is.
Perfect.
Getting out the lead. Well, we got something out of it. My poor old crucible needs to be replaced, though. We burnt a hole in it. Oops. I was supposed to pour in that hole. Oops. So this is the lead prill we made in our smelt. It's got a little bit of flux on the outside there, but that's okay. The Coupel can deal with flux, no problem. It's a nice size. It'll fit into the Coupel nicely. And all it does is it goes into the Coupel, in the Coupeling furnace here. It will melt down onto that little dish on top of the Coupel, and then it'll slowly start to oxidize. The oxidized metal gets absorbed by the Coupel, leaving the precious metals that don't oxidize behind. Well, there is what we poured out of the little crucible that had just the borax and gold. I use the term gold very loosely. We'll let that cool for a second and we'll see what comes out. I didn't see any metallic metals pouring out through the flux. Okay, let's see what comes out. Oh!
Wait a minute!
We got metal!
What is this?
It looks like copper! Ooh, that might have to be Coupelled as well. Copper will Coupel.
Will it?
Yes. You guys get a much higher temperature. This is interesting. There's actually a lot of it in there. We ended up with a big bead of metal, which is looking very copperish at the moment.
Take it on the place.
Okay, let's knock off some more of that flux.
Okay,
So this is interesting. There is like 10 grams of material from that 10 grams we put in. We don't actually have a scale here, but we're just guessing. It looks like it did all melt down into metal. Sure not looking gold, but it melted down into a metal. It'll be interesting to see what that Coupel comes out at, because any other metals should get absorbed into that Coupel. We're gonna hit this with a hammer just to see how soft it is. Go for it, Ed.
not very soft.
It doesn't work Coupelling in there. I tried it once before. Yeah, so it's not soft, it's not brittle, it's definitely metallic.
It's metal. It's not fire and it's not water.
Any other metals other than the gold should get absorbed into that Coupel.
You can see the lead starting to melt.
Lead starting to melt? Perfect. So we're just, thinking here a little bit. We're wondering if copper can actually be hammered out as thin as gold leaf. If you can get copper leaf just as thin, and then maybe electroplate some gold on the surface. Electroplating gold takes nothing in the way of gold to do, yet the surface still looks gold. Yep. So maybe that's copper foil, very thin, with like a 1 or 2 molecule thick layer of gold on the surface.
But we melted whatever it was in that furnace. So what's the melting temperature of copper?
What's the temperature of that furnace? This,
it's a little it's less than that.
Yeah.
So it's under 2,000, probably 17, 18.
It took a lot of temperature to melt that.
Yeah.
It
yeah, it took a long time. See, if we had salt service here, we could look that one up.
There we go. It's melting in there.
And oxidizing.
And oxidizing? Oh yeah, it's absorbing.
You see the red ring on the outside when you put that?
Yeah. Now, if there is that much copper in there, we're going to need a lot more heat to Coupel this than normal. Dad was saying we need one of those guns to see what kind of temperature is in there right now. But it's all melted now. It's now Coupelling. It's doing its thing. And let's hope it doesn't take too terribly long to oxidize that and absorb all that lead and maybe even copper. It's starting to give off a smoke that we usually don't see in Coupelling. So we're standing way back. We don't want to breathe anything we shouldn't be breathing. And typically it doesn't vaporize any lead, but something is actually burning or vaporizing right now. So we'll let it do its thing, but we're not going to breathe any of that. You're not really supposed to Coupel at that hot of a temperature, but it goes quicker if you do. Now, very interesting, looking at this Coupel working, yes, I hold my breath when I go over there. The surface of the bead of metal that's in there is looking very goldish at the moment. It could be a copper that's that hot looking goldish, but whatever, when I look in there, it definitely is not looking like lead anymore. It looks like possibly, I'm thinking right now that it's copper bead that is oxidizing and Coupelling right now. You notice the difference in the Coupel afterwards. The lead Coupel looks yellow. lead oxide is yellow. A copper cupel looks red because the copper oxide goes into the cupel looking red. So we won't be able to tell until it cools off, but I'm thinking there's a lot of copper being cupelled in there right now. We have a problem. The metal in the cupel just solidified, which probably means all the lead that was in it finally got absorbed by the cupel, leaving just the copper and gold. And we're not hot enough for the copper to melt and oxidize. So I've put a lid on it for a second and turned the torches to maximum. We're gonna see if we can bring this temperature back up a bit, enough to melt the copper and start it oxidizing as well. If we can't get it hot enough, unfortunately I can't go into the big kiln to do it. It doesn't oxidize in the kiln. Not enough oxygen gets in. It gets hot enough, but no oxygen. If I can't get it working on that, we won't get a result today.
But it should get hot enough because we melted the straight film.
We were able to melt that into, but that's under borax. Under borax, it actually doesn't reduce the melting temperature, but it insulates it in there. Yeah. So, let's hope.
It's iffy.
It's iffy. It's liquid again. We're gonna let it build up some heat so that when we take the top off and start oxidizing, it stays liquid for a while. Well, I'm not able to keep that copper gold mix hot enough to cupel properly. And I also don't quite know enough about the cupelling process to know things like, do I need to add more lead to make the copper do its thing? Or I just don't know. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the cupel process right now. I'm going to send this cupel and bead, or this material, down to Jason from Mount Baker Mining and Metals and see if he can put it into his hotter kiln and force off that copper. I think it's copper in there, and see how much gold is in it. And I'll definitely get some results from Jason to show you what was in that gold foil. And I do have the piece that we melted to compare, the 10 grams we just melted versus the 10 grams we smelted and cupelled, and see how much gold was actually there. But today, this afternoon, our cupelling process is a bit of a failure, for sure. We just can't do it with the technology we have here. Hopefully, my buddy Jason can bail us out. Just not hot enough, and it doesn't get any oxygen when we put that lid on, so... Jason, help! Help, Jason! I would like to send Jason the whole cupel and everything, but it's freaking hot right now, and that's hard to transport. We gotta go. So I need to preface this that I am not an expert on smelting. In fact, I'm a firm believer that you should never stop learning, and I learned something new today. I knew you could cupel copper, but I didn't know the specifics. When I went back to the interweb and looked it up, I found that the copper needs a significant amount of lead with it for both of them to be able to oxidize and get absorbed into the cupel. Without lead, the copper oxidizes on the surface, stays hard, and it does what's called freezing. And that's what it did to me. So I am off to a big mining conference right now. And when I get back, I will go and add some lead to that, recupel it, and show you the results. I was lucky enough to be able to head down to Vancouver, British Columbia to the AME Roundup. That's a big mining and exploration conference held down there. And as I was walking around the trade show, I came across these two guys that were demonstrating XRF devices. It's an X-ray device that actually will tell you the precise molecular makeup of an item. And I asked them if they would scan my copper prill here. And of course they were happy to. When they scanned it, it came out to being 100% copper. Now, there was a little bit of traces of gold and other things in there, and there are some problems scanning a solid item like this. You don't get to tell what's inside, and there may have been a copper sort of coating on the outside, but basically it tells you that this thing was 100% copper. Now, I did go back and finish cupelling it, and the results back home were similar. Check them out. Well, here I am, back at the smelting furnace. Well, the cupelling furnace. I found some scrap lead laying around. We're going to go and re-cupel that prill that didn't work the first time with extra lead to absorb that copper. Well, it doesn't really absorb the copper. It kind of dissolves the copper so the cupel can absorb the copper. But let's get her done. Well, there's the remaining prill. We're going to get that in the cupel right away. And here's some scrap lead I found. I'm going to melt it down once and pour off just the pure lead to make sure any contaminants get cleaned up. But put those two together in the cupel. So I'm not sure how much lead I'll need. That's a significant amount. Let's hope that's enough. We will put that into the furnace, start it melting in the cupel, and then I'll put the bead on top of it. Now let's hope this works. Now I'm pushing it a bit faster than you're supposed to for cupelling. You're not supposed to let it glow bright like that. But I just need to get this done. And if I lose a tiny bit of the precious metals, I'm okay with that. Now while we let that melt, when I went home and looked this up on the internet, what I read is that copper oxide forms a solid at the temperatures that we cupel at. Lead oxide forms a liquid, and that's why it can get absorbed into the cupel. But because copper oxide's a solid, it can't get absorbed. Now fortunately, lead oxide, the liquid, will dissolve copper oxide. So it dissolves in like sugar would dissolve into water. And because the two of those together are a liquid, they will together get absorbed into the cupel. And that brings me to a great geology lesson of the day. Metal oxides. Almost all metals will react with oxygen, creating an oxide. You know the common ones like rust, of course. And most metals will oxidize to a hard surface that protects the metal from rusting any farther. But that hard surface will get eroded away or dissolved away, leaving fresh metal, which gets oxidized again, which erodes away and gets oxidized over and over and over again until there's nothing left. And that is why we can actually find gold in native, actual gold metal in the environment, because it's one of the only metals that will not oxidize. Because gold doesn't oxidize, it doesn't form something that can get eroded away or dissolved away and make it go away. Because it won't oxidize, it stays in its natural form in the ground. Even silver, which doesn't oxidize all that well, it does still oxidize, and eventually silver will go away, and that's why we don't find much native silver in the environment. Gold, platinum, a couple other noble metals will stay in the environment because they don't oxidize. There you go, today's geology lesson of the day. Well, there we go. Let's check it out. Now I did have to add lead twice more to continue the oxidation of that copper all the way down to the bead. It took a lot of lead. And there's the bead of gold. I had to come home to find my scale to weigh this up, but that tiny microscopic bead of gold comes out to 0.025 grams. And that's just assuming that I actually was able to cupel it all the way down to just gold. So if you do the math, the 10 grams of original material smelting down to 0.025 grams of gold means yes, there was pretty much nothing in that original sample. Now that being said, 0.025 grams of gold is still worth $1.25. So I guess that's a little bit more than nothing. And that kind of does correspond with the results we got from the fancy-dancy XRF machine. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching us have fun out here and checking out what's in that gold foil. Hopefully, Jason had some results that I left just before this clip. Hopefully, they were interesting results. I don't know. That's the thing about taking these videos. Sometimes you do things out of order. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave me that thumbs up. If I haven't earned your subscription yet, I hope I earned your subscription today. And a big thanks to everyone for watching, especially my patrons. Because of the support of my patrons, I get to make these weekly episodes of Dan Hurd Prospecting. Hope you're all having a great day. And until the next one, bye. Bye.